when I was very imaginative, and I was always an entrepreneur. So I thought one day, and I watched these people coming out of the hotels, and they were always, pretty drunk and that, so I would go to the front of the hotel, and I'd stand there, and I'd wait until a drunk came out, and as soon as they came out, I'd pretend I was looking for something, but cry. I'd make myself cry, and without fail, the drunk would come over and say, "What's the matter, Sonny? I lost my money," and I'd see how much, 5 cents, 10 cents, or a quarter, whatever it was, I forget. And they would always say, "No, there, son, don't cry. He's here, I'll give you some money." And most of the time, it was twice as much as what I lost. And as soon as I had enough for movies, popcorn, and a soda pop, and a streetcar ride home, I would quit and go over to the movies and spend the day at the movies. So after I'd go to the movies, I'd come out, and of course I had money to take the streetcar home, but I thought, why waste it? And I realized that the streetcar had to stop every few blocks, so I'd race the streetcar home, and I would say it was about 2 miles, and I always beat the streetcar. When I was about 13, I think it was, I got my first job at the Ottawa Axe, and it was guiding ponies around a circular corral with kids on them. And what you did is you put the kid up on the pony, and then you walked the ponies around in a circle. And you did this all day from the time early in the morning until late at night. And I enjoyed it. I liked the life. I liked the sounds. I liked the smells. I liked everything about it. And I was working this day, and the owner came and he says, "I got to let you go." That's where I got the name Bud, by the way, because they couldn't say Trenholm, so they all said, "Hey, Bud," and it stuck. But anyhow, they told me that I wasn't allowed to work until I was 14. So I came back the next year at 14, and I was able to work there, but instead of working on the pony ride, I worked for a custard stand. At that time, ice cream custards weren't that popular in Canada. They really hadn't reached Canada yet, and so people went nuts over them. And this beautiful red truck, gold lettering, it was really nice. It was, and we sold the ice cream out of the back, and my job was to make the mix. There was a tent out back, but the odd time they would get me up to the front selling. And the first thing all the guys taught me was, when a girl comes along and she's well endowed, you hold up the ice cream and you say, "Hey, look at the big ones." And of course, that was so they could come and have a look. But the crowd thought I was talking about the big ice cream. So anyhow, that year I was offered the opportunity to go travel with them. And so I brought the owner over to the house to meet my mother, and my mother agreed. And I went, and I got as far as Messina. No, I didn't get to Messina, I don't think. Anyhow, I crossed the bridge at Cornwall, Ontario, over to the States. Watertown was the first town, but I never got to town. I got to the customs on the other side of the bridge. And there they asked my age, and I told them I was 14, you can't come. Or I was 13, I forget. I was 1 year under the age. So I think that's what it was. I was 1 year under the age, and I wasn't allowed to come. And my only way back was to walk the bridge from Canada, from the United States to Canada. It was a long walk, but when I got there, then I had to take a bus home. Well, I waited another year, because I was told I could do it in another year, but I should have got a green card. I don't know what they called them then, for working, because I got across the border fine. There was no problem. I got down into, we stopped at Essex Junction, Vermont, and then Rutland, Vermont, and we were heading for Bangor, Maine. I forget what it was. But in Rutland, Vermont, I was helping to put up some girders for it was one of these horse racing games that light up. Anyhow, I was I had this girder up with the other guys, and I'm holding it up, and these guys came along and said, I presume you boys are all local boys? And I thought, uh-oh. I just took off. I took off, and they were in hot pursuit. But once again, I was fairly fast. I got to the ice cream truck, because I was only doing the other people a favor by lifting that thing. I got to the ice cream truck, went inside, waited about an hour, thought, the coast is clear. Opened the door to step down onto the steps, and there was the customs officer, or whatever you want to call him, sitting, wiping his brow. So they asked me about it, and does your mom know you're here? And yeah, and does she know where you sleep? Let me see where you sleep. So I showed him, and he said, does your mom know where you're sleeping? And I said, oh yeah. And he said, okay, I got to go and talk with the other guys. And so they went, and he came back. He says, well, son, we're going to have to take you back. And I said, shit. So I told the owner knew, anyhow. He was a decent guy. He gave me some money because I hadn't really worked that much that week. I got paid before. And anyhow, there was 3 of them. They put me in the center in the back seat, one guy on one side, one guy on the other, and another big guy in the front driving. And I didn't want to let on that I was scared, but I was scared. I get back to the office, and they started asking me things. And they said, you sit here a minute. We're going to just go and discuss you. So they went to the next room, but the wall didn't go all the way up. There was about 3 feet that was open. And when I look back, of course, I know what they were doing, but at that time I didn't. And one of them said, well, why don't we do this? If he's got the money to get himself back to Canada, that's fine. We'll put him on the bus. But if he doesn't, he's going to have to spend the night in jail. And I, of course, as soon as I heard that, I wasn't that old, and it was scary. So I couldn't wait for them to come back in the room to tell them I had enough money to go back. And so they did right away. They said, okay, there's a bus out of here in an hour or 2 hours. And they walked me down, and they waited until I got on the bus. They put me on the bus and waved goodbye, and that was it. And I ended up in Montreal, got on the bus in Montreal, and back home. That was the end of my my carny days. Oh, my first job actually was at the Bowls Lunch in downtown Ottawa. And that was my first real job. And being a busboy and picking up dishes and keeping the floor clean and that. And at the Bowls Lunch, it attracted all kinds of people. And the bums would come in, and they would, as soon as they saw somebody put a tip down and leave the table, they'd run over and pick up my tips. So I learned to be very fast there too, because you had to be fast to get the tips, or otherwise the bums would get it. That job led into, it was my uncle that got me that job, another uncle who I really liked, my Uncle Wesley. He was a real good guy. And he got me that job, and then later on he got me a job down on, I think it was called the White Spot at that time, or White Tower. And he was the short order cook there. And I did dishes down there, but also every once in a while he'd want to rest, so he'd get me to do some of the cooking. And I wasn't very good. So anyhow, one day he yelled in, we need three fried eggs and toast, I guess. And anyhow, I got the eggs, and I thought, well, what do I do with them? I can only break one at a time and that. So I put one in my front pocket, one in my shirt pocket, and I proceeded to break the other and put it in. But I leaned against the counter, and the egg broke in my pocket. And I backed up, and I bent down for something, and the other egg fell out of my pocket, and it landed on the floor. So I wasn't asked to be a short order cook anymore after that. I stuck to dishes.